Good morning and welcome to AutoTalk Live. One of those rare episodes where we are actually on vaguely at the time we're supposed to be on. We're all vaguely in the same country, and this is not a pre-record. We are actually live, live, live.
Live. The watch is 10 o'clock, live.
So to prove it, there's just been a rather crazy helicopter crash over the Hudson in New York City. It is wild. Yeah. After the show, go have a look at that. That was very sad, but very interesting to see what was going on there. But anyway, proves that we're live.
Okay.
Now, Graham, also to prove that we're live, show us your new toy.
Those of you that know me know I do like my toys. I'm a reasonably serious die-cast collector, but this has just arrived. If you spend time in Japan, I'm sure you'd appreciate this.
As many of our viewers from the import trade would have.
This is a scale model Family Mart, complete right down to the internal shelving, the sliding doors, and a little light, if I can turn that on. Probably can't see that, but all the fridges in the back are lit up as well. And it's 1/64th scale, so you put your Hot Wheels in front of it, your Japanese Hot Wheels. It's also got a parking lot that I won't show you that you put on the front. You park your cars there and take your scale model photos. How cool is that? All but the packets of interesting rice crackers on the shelves.
So is it a Hot Wheels thing, or is it made for Hot Wheels, or what's the?
Well, it's actually made for the 1/64th diecast world is so much bigger than Hot Wheels. That's only a little teaser. That's actually the rank amateur side. The serious scale stuff at 1/64th, particularly is made in China, but marketed through Japanese brands. Go figure how that works. The level of detail is absolutely incredible. It's not cheap either, but it's incredible. So, but yeah, my Hot Wheels do live there.
I'm trying to fix my lighting. It's not working today. Anyway,
you're okay. We can just see the lovely sides of your face.
Probably can.
That's worse. Well, I don't actually know your camera adjusts. That's not too bad.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, well, that is fun. Now, when does the scale model 7-Eleven and scale model Lawson's arrive?
Oh, I could have bought those too. There's a whole range. There's a McDonald's. There's a KFC. There was a who's the Japanese dude with the discount chain store? I can't think of his name now. The happy guy and he with the towel who does the discount. In fact, one of the original Japanese discounter stores.
Does the KFC come with Santa? You know, the Colonel Sanders Santa standing outside.
No, but it does have the bucket on a stick. And if you look closely, you can see the stains of lost hope dragging through the floor on the entrance doors. And
oh, classic!
If you've been to Japan, you'll know. If you know, you know.
We are incredibly weird, aren't we? Hey, you love. I've been to Japan in the run up to Christmas, and the whole Christmas KFC thing is just blows my mind. Anyway, before we get too far in, I just want to remind people about AutoTalk Live, May 8th in Auckland at the Tote. Selling fast. We have a few tables left. Grab them. We want as many people there as possible. We have a great speaker roster in place now, led, of course, by having Deloitte there doing their fantastic industry benchmarks. So if you do want tickets for that, go to autotalk.co.nz/live, or ask some of your major finance, insurance, or other suppliers. Sometimes they might have a seat at their table. A lot of dealers go with their industry friends, we will call it. Now, I am going to do what I did last for Christchurch and give away 2 tickets on this show. Ooh. So to win those tickets, just send an email to richard@automediagroup.co.nz and tell me what type of store Graham was just holding up. Now, hopefully, the people that win these tickets actually make it to this one, because in Christchurch, who did we give the tickets away to, Graham?
I'm not going to say Richard, but I'll leave that one to you. bit embarrassing.
Yes, I see that the people that won the tickets did not come to the event, but luckily they hadn't started sending you certain other pictures at that point. So
maybe he was otherwise engaged in the bathroom. No, let's just not go there, Richard. Let's just not go there. But I remember at the time the horrible irony of the particular scenario. However, winning a couple of free tickets. Now you should slow down when you say that. Is that Richard at automediagroup.co.nz?
Yes, Richard at automediagroup.co.nz, and
Good.
whatever store, and the name of whatever store it was that Graham held up, and may just quickly flash up now while I'm looking away, just so people really know. And I'm looking back. That didn't happen again. All right.
No, not at all.
Cool. Okay, right.
No,
Let's move on to the news. And leading off, speaking of Japan, Ishikawa permanently appointed as Toyota New Zealand Chief Executive. The Board of Toyota New Zealand has announced that Tatsuya Ishikawa has been made the permanent Chief Executive of the national sales company for the Toyota and Lexus brands. Further strengthening the leadership team, Mark Young and Drew Davis have been appointed to the Toyota New Zealand board as directors. In addition to their board appointments, Young has been named Chief Risk and Value Chain Officer, responsible for overseeing risk management and optimizing Toyota value chain operations, while Davis has been named Chief Strategic Officer, shaping the company's long-term strategic direction. Given how well Ishikawa has performed in the acting role, along with his connections to Toyota Corporation and the global Toyota family, this was a natural appointment to a New Zealand board chair. Akitoshi Takamura says all three roles were made effective as of the most recent Toyota New Zealand board meeting on March 26, 2025. Ishikawa will focus on bringing the global perspective and TMC needs to Toyota New Zealand, with Young and Davis driving strategies into the business and network locally. Read
What's
into that what you
what's
will.
his tenure with Toyota? What's the how long has he been involved?
I believe he is pretty much a career Toyota man. He's been down in New Zealand for some time as well. And a solid appointment. I think it's interesting to see the positioning of Mark Young and Andrew Davis. Davis certainly was kind of, I guess, very much seen as the man behind the throne when it came to Neeraj Lala's tenure at the top there. Always very prominent and active. Good to see him there. And Mark Young obviously has had experience in a number of areas in the business. So a pretty solid market leadership team there. And you often see these kind of, I wouldn't say lead by panel, but these strong leadership groups in car companies. I always think it's interesting to see that Toyota always, or certainly more now, put that panel of leaders to the fore rather than just kind of having them backing up their main CEO. So interesting stuff there. I guess I would suggest that the previous kind of two generations of management put through a change in the business. So maybe it's time for them to settle in and consolidate what's there. Yeah. Now, let's talk about what the government's up to over the next few months. Driver licensing reform and RUCs, part of government's Q2 action plan. The government will begin public consultation on reforms to the New Zealand driver licensing system and make key decisions on the future of the fleet-wide road user charges system as part of its new quarterly action plan. The Q2 plan, covering the April to June period, outlines 38 new actions aimed at driving economic growth and delivering on coalition agreements. Among them are two moves directly impacting motorists in the transport sector, consultation on proposed changes to the driver licensing framework, and the final cabinet decisions on how to transition all vehicle types to RUC. Both developments are being closely watched by the road transport and automotive sectors, which have called for modernisation and greater clarity.
The RUC one is the one that everyone's watching carefully. I mean, from an industry perspective on our show this morning, everyone's watching the RUC one really carefully. And I suspect no one can say that warning signs. No one can say that the indication this was going to be a plan moving forward wasn't there. It's been really clearly signaled all the way through. Now the test is going to be how the government sells what is, I think, going to be a reasonably universally panned policy by the general public. It's going to be a toughie to sell, even though all the signs were given right from the get-go that New Zealand needs to move towards that RUC model. And I think if you're industry or beltway, you understand why. But as a sell to the general public, I think this is going to be a bit of a toughie.
I think they're going to sell it on the basis that petrol is going to be cheap afterwards, but I don't think petrol is going to be that cheap afterwards.
I don't think it's that much cheaper. No.
So I think that's how they're going to do it, but I don't think it's going to move the goalpost dramatically on that state. It is ultimately needed, I think. New Zealand will be the first of many that I think go this way, because you've got to road fund your road somewhere. And unless you want to go down the track in Australia where you pay a very large registration fee every year as a way of compensating on some elements, then yeah, it's going to have to be a move towards some kind of thing. Now, in that, they do actually have time of use charging as a key part of the reforms, which means that whatever ruck there will be, it could be a case of, in addition to that, through that system, that you pay if you want to drive through Spaghetti Junction at 8:15 in the morning, you're going to pay more than if you drive through there at 11 o'clock in the morning. And that's a smart move, I think. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays. You don't seem
Yes.
convinced, Graham.
No. Well, I like the idea in principle, Richard, but I'm not convinced around a couple of things. First of all, is implementation to a large part of New Zealand. Not a large part, but certainly there's a fairly big chunk of New Zealand that I think is in a struggle with the concept of ruck. And I know we talk about, well, they do it on diesel vehicles and things now. A lot of people don't that are driving diesel vehicles, and you transfer it across to everyday transportation for quite a large chunk of people. It's going to be a really tough one to manage and enforce, and I can see that.
Come on, Graham. You in your days of processing repos and trades, you've never seen a switch under the dashboard of a former courier van suggesting something untoward may have happened with a ruck. You've never seen it.
Never, ever at all did we ever see that in all the millions of courier vans that we were involved in as repos, every single one of them. But the point was that those drivers, Richard, were probably more commercially savvy than the average parking lot up the road. I've got Lincoln North Mall, where I'd wager, as it stands right now, if I took you up there, we could throw a rock and we could probably find 5 cars in the car park that were dormant registration or wrong plates, let alone just unlicensed and unwarranted. So it's going to be a toughie. And the issue of road pricing in terms of timing, once again, I don't know whether I'm comfortable with the idea of the Spaghetti Junction model, for example, for a lot of people that work in different industries that are not shift related, they have a choice into when they travel. And I struggle with the concept that if you just don't have the good luck of being able to choose your work hours or your transport options, you're just stuck with paying it. There's not really relief for you.
I don't think this is about just trying to encourage people necessarily to shift when they travel. It's about deciding whether that's the right mode of travel for them, but also encouraging businesses to do that. And we've seen there has been evidence where these kind of things have happened before, or where governments have put in controls before, where things have shifted. So, for example, I've been to one city where the council basically put in mandates where certain parts of retail don't open until 10 o'clock or 10:30 in the morning. But then and you end up with quite a different dynamic. It's could be good, could be bad. I don't know. We'll see. I guess you've got to go through the consultation and see what people really think about this kind of stuff.
I'm on the fence. I'm not hard and fast against it. I just foresee some issues in the uniqueness of New Zealand that we have in our population and how we think about these sort of things. I do see trouble.
Yeah. It's the old deal. It's like 10 years ago or 5 years ago. No, 6 years ago. I never would have thought of having my entire team working from home. I liked having people in the office. Now everyone works from home. I mean, things change. Who knows? Smarter people than us have got to work on that. Speaking of further government change, there is debate going on in regards to the government's proposed changes to cough rules for motorhomes, with obviously some clearly differing opinions around what it should be from either side. It's a bit of a well-da as to who's supporting it or not. The government's proposal to reduce the frequency of certificate fitness on private heavy motorhomes from every 6 months to once a year has been welcomed by the New Zealand Motor Caravan Association. Well-da. NZFCA spokesperson Brent Giles said the organisation has been lobbying for years on behalf of its members to extend the cough inspection from 6 months to a year for privately owned motorhomes. Gilly says the vehicles are not daily drivers and 6 month check is a financial burden, but the 12-month check is more reasonable. However, the Motor Trade Association of Vehicle Testing New Zealand, again, have raised their concerns in a submission on the government's proposal. The two organisations proposed an alternative framework, changing the frequency to annually for newer motorhomes and retaining 6 monthly checks for motorhomes over 20 years old. Motorhomes are sizable vehicles that make up a significant portion of the country's fleet, around 39,000 vehicles, MTA Chief Executive Lee Marshall says. The consequences of an accident involving a motorhome can be catastrophic. VTNZ Chief Executive Greg O'Connor says inspection data tell the compelling story. Over the last 3 years, the failure rate for motorhomes is around 28%, and for motorhomes more than 20 years old, that increases to 48%. That does not suggest a safe overall fleet. I guess the question comes: would the failure rate be significantly higher on an annual than it would be on a 6 month? Because that's not guaranteed
No, I think
necessarily.
that's, and look, kudos, because NTA and VTNZ are representing the interests of their members who so happen to issue reasonably expensive COFs. I'm with you. I don't think it would change much in terms of the figures, given that the motorhome users are quite correct. They tend to be quite seasonal. A lot spend a long time parked up, and I'd argue that the failure rate probably is not going to change much if you alter the date. And that over 20-year-old bracket, well, is that motorhomes that are failing that are 30 years old or they're 40 years old? Because don't forget, we're now looking at a sizable chunk of our fleet on the road when it comes to older motorhomes and commercial vehicles that were manufactured in the 90s or even in some cases earlier, particularly in Japan when there was that first flood of older chassis coming across and being converted. You still see those little early Mitsubishi Maui campers trundling around the place too. And so that sector has grown older. Whether the 20-year benchmark is the correct one to use or it's just the right statistic to pluck out of the air, I don't know. But I'll be careful about
they're not heavies, but aren't those little Mitsubishi L300 based motorhomes, got little cute small ones, they've become almost kind of iconic. They're almost retro cool and getting better values than they used to now. They've
like old caravans, isn't it?
Kind
Same
of
sort of
classic.
thing. Yeah, that's right. We've sort of moved into that market. So be careful, MTA and VTNZ, about how you lobby this, because from an outsider's perspective looking in, because they've got no interest in this financially, it does look like you're advocating for more money rather than any particular credible argument around increasing safety, just from my perspective.
Yes, yeah. The interesting thing about this is, could this ultimately become a bit of a non-event anyway? In that, the more I talk to people, the more we hear that there is likely to be some form of review of vehicle weight rules anyway. We're seeing now, we understand potentially there could be some exemptions or that coming in for some of the plug-in hybrid utes that are coming. I believe the government will probably provide broader a review to that kind of stuff in the near future.
Yes.
So, could that change would these heavy motorhomes technically be heavy anymore? If you push this up to 4.5 ton, 5.5 ton, that could dramatically change.
Is 4.5 enough? I mean, there's always going to be a cutoff somewhere. I don't know if the difference between 3.5 and 4.5 is enough to capture all these motor. I don't know what a conventional motorhome these days weighs. I don't know. Somebody please tell me. But we certainly have moved towards larger motorhomes. That is for sure. But I'd argue that the quality of those newer builds coming through is greater too.
Yeah. Just briefly, totally not industry news, just me talking fun stuff. I've jumped on Trade. Ironically, get an ad for the Mangawhai Heads 4 Square. Yes, where I live. And you get to meet Ruby, as this one is called. This is one of those little L300 motorhomes. Interesting, these are mid-90s. I think they built a whole pile of these cab chassis and had them sitting in Porirua until they were converted.
Needs retro.
Yes.
Isn't that a throwback?
But do you want to guess how much this is worth these days?
I reckon they probably want about $17,000 for that.
Yep, 18.5.
Oh, I'm not far away. Okay.
Those little L300 motorhomes are appreciating in value. Check out this one. Whoa,
that's a slightly newer one. Look at that.
That is seen apart in New Zealand, and they are a little vehicle.
Yep.
Oh, that's the facelift. That's the updated model.
Yeah, that's
it's even flasher.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. Look at that 80s dashboard, and that vehicle is a 1995 with the very, very early 80s dashboard in it.
Yep.
Yeah. Crazy.
Nice. If you like your motorhome, that's like having a CI Munro badge in the back of your caravan, isn't it?
Well, I think they were CI Munros, weren't they?
They did build a lot of them down in the Otrahonga factory, wasn't it? I think, was it Otrahonga that used to make them?
Possibly. Yeah. No, a cool part of Kiwiana. Yes. Right. Speaking about a bit of Kiwiana, I love when I can segue between these things. Field Days. Hyundai is out as the major sponsor of Field Days, and in its place is a somewhat smaller company. JSE joins Field Days as a major sponsor. Actually, technically, JSE's entered a step down from what Hyundai used to be, but it would appear that they are now kind of the key vehicle brand attached to the Field Days name. A handshake and a hot pie have sealed a new partnership between Field Days and rising automotive brand JAC, and the company comes on board as a major sponsor of the Southern Hemisphere's largest agricultural event. The collaboration marks a major milestone for JAC as it prepares to introduce its flagship T9 four-wheel drive double cab ute to New Zealand. Right. Our partnership with the new partnership also follows the conclusion of Field Day's long-running relationship with Hyundai. Our partnership ended with Hyundai in October last year, and JAC is now a major sponsor for both Field Days and the National Field Day Society. Spokesperson confirmed. New Zealand National Field Day Society Chief Executive Richard Lindros says, "We are really excited to have JAC on board and help them showcase a ute that has been built with truck DNA to the New Zealand market at Field Days." They're also going to have their trucks there, including their electric trucks.
That's a long press release. Why are they holding a pie, Richard? Why are they holding a pie?
There is a tie-in. To celebrate the partnership, JAC and Field Days will hit the road every Friday in May for Pie Day Friday, visiting locations around Waikato to give the public a taste of the new ute and a free pie. We're looking forward to kicking off Pie Day Friday. The pies are on us, and we've also got some Field Days tickets to give away too. So there you go.
I hope it's more than a frozen. I hope it's more than a frozen Big Ben down out of the bottom of the.
What are you looking for? Are you looking for a Mrs. Max? Because Mrs. Max are Australian.
I'm a Z pie guy myself, actually. When it comes to Kiwi cuisine, can't beat it on the road. Can't beat a Z pie. Graham's top tip for the day. But look, actually,
we're kind of let down in the North Island. They have way better pies down the lower South Island.
Oh, they do. But this is North Island stuff. However, I was going to say, from JAC's perspective, that's a very, very clever tie-in. I think the timing couldn't be better. Obviously, they wouldn't be doing it. And that T9, I haven't seen any really on the road around the place yet to make a comment. But from what I've seen, they don't appear to be a particularly bad-looking truck. And we talked about it before, that they've moved away a bit from the, I would say, over-complication of some of the designs you've seen coming on through.
That is what I would say about their vehicle, is that in a world where utes are getting more and more complicated, twin-turbo setups and coil-sprung rear ends and all sorts of stuff, it's a good old-school truck. That's the way I put it. It's a good old-school work truck.
And it doesn't look like they're trying too hard. It actually, I think that the styling is conservative, but it's conservative in a good way.
Yeah. Right. Moving on. The Reserve Bank has cut the OCR to 3.5%. The Reserve Bank has lowered the official cash rate by 25 basis points to 3.5%. Its global trade tensions cast a shadow over the country's economic outlook. We're looking at you, Trump. The Monetary Policy Committee announced the move on Wednesday following its April meeting, and it was widely anticipated by markets and clearly signaled in February. The central bank decided to spare productive capacity in the domestic economy, weakening global activity and subdued inflationary pressure as key factors behind the decision. Annual consumer price inflation remains near the midpoint of the committee's 1 to 3% target band. So yes, interest rates are coming down. We kind of expected that. Yeah. We have seen some signals from the banks that are lowering mortgage rates, which is good. It also means as we start to get lower, and I've got something going into AutoTalk magazine, which is out early next week. Time to start, scratching up digging out your experience on how to convert those people who walk in with bank finance. Because as the mortgage rate come down, they might start. We saw a big shift when the mortgage rates went up to people financing at the yard. We're going to see potentially as they come down again, people nudging back the other way. So a good reminder just to check with your finance company about the best ways to try and convert those people. Though at the moment, you might just like, anyone with money, I'll take it.
I was going to say, Richard, that'd be great if there were people to sell finance too. I don't know if we're covering this off on the show this morning, but you know what? We sort of think about it now. The industry, I think, fell off a bit of a cliff as soon as the tariff talk started with our good friend President Trump. It's like the buyers just suddenly scurried back into their holes again. And all the dealers I've spoken to in my particular circle or sphere, if you like, have all said the same thing. So I'm not just talking about a little West Auckland cabal here, fallen off a cliff. And every representative I talk to from the various service-related companies, and of course we can't name names, but they're all involved in everything from F&I and everything else as well, have all said the same thing. It's just the numbers overall. And here's the funny thing. There are still little pockets that are doing okay. And there's a couple of dealers that I've had mentioned to me that have actually would suggest they're doing really well at the moment. So it's not a complete industry. There are some that are still doing okay. But by and large, the industry is having a really, really tough time. Look, I drove up Wairau Road in the North Shore of Auckland on Wednesday and stuck in traffic for quite some time. So I was on Wairau Road for the space of, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 minutes, going past all the different retail stores. I did not see one customer. Middle of the day, Wednesday, not one customer anywhere, nobody, none, nada. And there's every single franchise brand along there. I look at around here in West Auckland, and it's almost unusual to find people you can see on anybody's yard anywhere. It really is really worryingly quiet. And so I honestly don't care if they come in with cash or finance or trading their firstborn children. I'm not so bothered. We can find a market somewhere, I'm sure. It's been...
Myrrh, gold and frankincense.
Beg your pardon?
Myrrh, gold and frankincense.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can find a market for frankincense. We don't be traders at the end of the day. But no, the really concerning part about all this is when it comes to the rate adjustment from the OCR is how it may fall further yet, and I'm sure it will. But the message to consumers isn't one about rates. The message is around just general economic uncertainty about New Zealand's economy and the global economy. And we know these things just feed into people's minds and they start reflecting on it. Is it a good time to buy or not? Am I concerned about what this means for my job, for my future, for my KiwiSaver? You looked at your KiwiSaver recently, peoples? All these things then turn them away from making...
It spiked up very briefly and then crashed again. So
yeah, I know. Just don't look. So there we are.
Trump standing in the Oval Office with a bunch of his billionaire mates pointing out to the media, he made $2 billion. He made $1 billion. Everyone's doing well.
That story might have some more oxygen in it.
That's the kind of thing the Justice Department, when they're out of your control, comes back to look at, Mr. Trump. Just remember that. Just remember that. Anyway, don't give them fodder to do what you accused them of doing last time. Right. Audi achieved Dealer of the Year. Audi New Zealand recently announced the winners of the Audi Excellence Awards 2024, with Ibit Audi taking home the title of Dealer of the Year. 2024 year brought its share of economic challenges. Understatement, but has also underscored the resilience and dedication of our dealer network. Audi New Zealand General Manager Greg Leet says, after 25 years of Audi Excellence Awards, celebrating last year's achievements is more meaningful than ever. And we go through new car sales team. Continental Cars was a finalist, but Continental Cars won. Audi was a finalist. Used car sales team was Ibit Audi. Marketing team of the year, Continental Cars Audi. Service team of the year, Farmer Audi. Parts team of the year, Farmer Audi. Ibit Finance and Insurance team of the year, Ibit Audi. And overall dealer of the year, Ibit Audi. So yes, a good little thing there.
May I just ask why we're having 2024 awards in April 2025?
Because that's the way it works. It takes a minute to measure up what everyone did. You can't just do stuff like that straight away. So yes, that is why.
Okay, just asking for a friend.
So yeah, it's a bit of fun, I guess. Right.
Hey, look, well done too. We love to celebrate success too. We should. I'm not dissing the fact that it's great to celebrate success, particularly in these challenging times, as alluded to in that press release there. You should still go out there and have a couple of cheeky vinos and get the chance to dress up in a tux and actually celebrate you're still in business. Well done. That should be the award.
It almost sounds cynical.
Beg your pardon?
It almost sounds a bit cynical.
No, I'm not, and it's not cynical either, Richard. I think there's a lot of truth of it right now. I believe that successful businesses right now have got potential to be successful are those that we talk about are investing in the future, they're investing in their staff, they're investing in their premises, they're saying, okay, this can't last forever. But even if things are going to change and the landscape are going on forward, we can't just sit here and do nothing about it. We can't sit here and be negative about it either. We've actually got to do things that'll engage our team, allow our team to grow, and make whatever landscape's going forward work for us.
Yeah. Now, here's something you'll like, Graham. Ranger Super Duty unveiled at Ford's annual centenary celebration. They showed this off last week. 4.5 ton brake towing capacity, 4.5 ton GVM, and an 8,000 gross combined mass. Those are Australian figures, of course. We're not exactly sure for New Zealand rate it for, because that's going to need a cough if it comes to New Zealand, unless we get a review of the rules. And available as a single super or double cab chassis from 2026, though I gather some of the cab chassis might land in 2025. So yeah, interesting to look at. I went over to Australia, have a look to kind of check it out. It is a weapon. It does look pretty much like a Ranger in the kind of key elements of the doors and the roof and the windows and that, but the nose is quite different, a lot more cooling. The suspension underneath is entirely pretty much different. They've done so much work on that. Massive, big, beefy diffs, all that kind of stuff. Onboard scales, all sorts of stuff that, you know, workers really want. Ford does do a damn good job, I think, of putting into vehicles tools that workers want, particularly the Transit. But the Range is getting a lot of stuff now as well. Yeah, this is going to be a hot seller, I believe.
So like hot pies in a Ranfurly winter.
Yes, and well, they're very much pitching it as being a work-ready tool, and you know, they can have all the things up fitted to it at the factory, so you can have all your various bits added on there, rather than fleets having to wait, which sometimes happens. They'll get in their cars and have to wait another 6 months before there's a queue at the upfitters to get stuff added. It'll blow the 70 series out of the water when it comes to the mining industry in Australia. I think a lot of people are just going to buy it because they want one. I mean, that double cab in that with this factory fitted snorkel and the factory blinged up wheels and all that kind of stuff just looks the nuts. And I suspect a lot of people who live in Half Moon Bay are going to be driving around in them.
Your favourite phase, Richard, you're going to say, oh, you can't, the lawyers are going to buy one. I can just about hear you saying it without wanting to say it. But okay, so target market. I have said that,
and you know I am right. You know I am right.
Hey, I'm a target market. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant. I'm a previous Ranger owner. I'm looking at that thinking, hell yes. Yeah. So if I'm saying that.
It's interesting. It's a really smart move, I think, in that the market for that kind of vehicle in Australia is big at the moment, but it's being sold to those American pickup trucks. They're not ideal because they're petrol. They are dimensionally too big. This is a bit more dimensionally appropriate for our market. It's bigger than a Ranger, but not as big as a Ram, but it has more rated capability than those vehicles. So it would be silly for like your average grey nomad in Australia to buy anything else, unless Dodge or Chevy find a small capacity diesel to pop into their vehicles. But even then, it won't be able to match the setup of these. So yeah, smart business from Ford, really smart business. And that thing has pretty much entirely been designed, developed, and engineered in Australia off a vehicle that was designed, developed, and engineered in Australia. The event we went to on the launch of it was very much Ford Australia is awesome kind of thing, celebrating the people, celebrating the. Yeah, they showed us one of their key designers now, whose dad and mum both worked at the assembly plant in Broadmeadows. It's an Aussie product, so yeah.
Yeah, mate. Indicative pricing?
No. Look, I would say take whatever range you like.
Doesn't matter. They'll just say, "Oh, I want one. Thank you very much. We'll tell you how much it'll cost later." It's a bit like the Elon Musk.
Take whatever range or Raptor you've got your eye on now and add 30 to 40% is my guess. Which means you'll see some of them being significantly north of $100,000.
I was going to say, but then you don't get an American pickup for $100,000 either these days. At least not.
You could for a while. I mean, you could buy a double cab Ram for like $90,000 when they first launched.
for the basic model Ram, but this arguably has a lot more kit. Yeah, watch this in Australia. I think Australia is really the market. New Zealand, it'll do well, but I think as a runaway success, it'll pace the sales charts in Australia for that product.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I think they kind of need it. I think in both markets, perhaps how to put it, there are some threats to the run of Ranger as the leader in the market. And I don't think this necessarily comes from Hilux or anything else that's doing that. It's just there's so many new options in the ute market. If we look at New Zealand at the moment, which is a market of, 4,500 vehicles at the moment. Well, BYD Shark alone has started to claim a couple of hundred of those a month. So that's going to eat into the leadership of someone. And then you've got a lot of stuff like that JAC coming in. The new Great Wall Cannon at $43,000 for quite a modern vehicle. Mitsubishi Triton's ticking over a while. With a number of choices out there has just become crazy. And I think Ford really needed to do something to just say, hang on. Sure, they're building trucks that can be called trucks in the same way that our Ranger can be called trucks. But look at that guy, that thing over there. They can't match up to that truck. That's a truck. You think that's a knife? That's a knife,
I'd argue
they're
that
playing knifey.
I'd argue that cannibalization of market share with the entrants like this JAC T9, for example, it's not necessarily going to hurt Ranger or Hilux sales. I think they're in a different plane when it comes to the market and the target they are achieving. But it certainly puts the frightness at the likes of Triton and Navara and some of the brands that are sitting in that sort of several tiers lower on the sales ladder. That's where it really starts to bite, because we're not necessarily increasing any more ute sales per se. Arguably a couple of hundred a month perhaps, but like you said, it's got to come from somewhere, and I believe it's that stuff, those new inches are chipping away. They're eating their own.
Yeah. Well, I guess you look at it, I mean, where's Navara in the market now? Triton's done pretty well because they offer an incredibly good value package. Ranger just sells because it does. Twitter goes up and down, I think, depending on what they're pricing and how they're working with people. But
how many are on the ground? Yeah, whether the ship came in.
Anyway, vehicle loan arrears up slightly. Vehicle loan arrears edged up to 5.7% in February, slightly higher than January's 5.6%, and unchanged from the same time last year, according to the latest Centrix March credit indicator. Despite this, New Zealand economy may be emerging from recession with signs of recovery appearing across credit and lending activity. Number of consumers in arrears dropped by 11,000 in February, falling to 480,000, or 12.39% of the credit active population. It marks the second month of a year-on-year improvement in arrears, signaling what Centrix calls gradual credit cycle recovery. Mortgage arrears also slightly improved, with 23,300 mortgage accounts past due, down 400 month on month. Although mortgage arrears remain at 3% higher year-on-year. Consumer credit demand held steady in Q1 of 2025. Mortgage applications for new homes rose 30% year on year, while demand for credit cards 22%. Retail energy accounts plus 16%, and personal loans plus 1.1% also increased. Non-mortgage lending, including vehicle finance, buy now, pay later, credit cards, and overdrafts, rose 3.9% year on year. So yes, people we just keep seeing little hints here and there that maybe it's getting better, but
I just saw when you were sort of reading off the numbers rolling, I was just thinking some company liquidations I saw 37% up year on year, which is probably to me more of an indication of the state of health of things. And a little bit cynically, I'd say, was this written before or after Liberation Day?
Too Cheap Group opened new flagship store, and this store makes me hungry. The Too Cheap Cars Group officially opened its new flagship premises at 620 Great South Road, Ellerslie, on April 4.
Is that what I think it
in
is?
hand. It is. The Too Cheap Cars Group Chief Executive David's going to cut the ceremonial ribbon to officially declare the new site open for business. The new site, formerly occupied by Wendy's hamburger restaurant, is more than twice the size of the previous site, which was 800 metres north in Green Lane, next door to Winger Motors. The new 2,222 square metre site features a 422 square metre showroom and offices. It has capacity for more than 70 vehicles and has been designed for ease of access and ample parking. Yes, so they're also going to open a mega site at Sylvia Park in August.
Oh,
which will be
wow. Okay.
directly in front of IKEA on Cleanmail Drive. And we've discussed before what's going in around Cleanmail Drive. Cleanmail Drive is hot property at the moment.
Yep.
Apparently, too cheap cars. You can go to IKEA, and let you know, buy all your flat pack, and then you can go to Too Cheap Cars and buy a larger car to get it home.
Put all the shit in.
Yeah.
And look, smart land where Too Cheap Cars aren't traditional landowners as opposed to leaseholders. That's part of the strategy. But some very smart property acquisition work there by their property team, I would say. That's by no means an accident.
Yeah. Have they bought it?
No, I'm assuming they've leased it because they're not landowners as a group. They tend to lease, but it's some very smart acquisition work by the property team in terms of obtaining a lease for that. Arguably harder to get a lease on it than it would be to actually purchase it outright. Very smart.
Yes. Right, now moving on to the next one. Auto Trader celebrates an award-winning month. Auto Traders tell New Zealand about your car campaign and be recognised with top honours at the 2024 UMA, I'm sure it's outdoor advertising or something, awards. The online automotive classified platform took home the Grand Prix prize for Best OOH, or Out of Home campaign, along with the Best Use of Channel and the Be Seen Award. One of the standard ads of the year, Auto Trader's 30-second TVC earned a silver at the Access Awards, while a gold was not awarded in the category, therefore making it the best TV ad in New Zealand for 2024. The campaign, designed to encourage private sales lists from the platform, had a twist, turning a car listing into a national headline and giving Kiwis the chance to win their own billboard. Auto Trader recorded 350,000 users in March 2025, the highest number yet recorded in a single month. Platform says it saw a 40% increase in leads from March 2025, and 40% of buyers inquired about finance. So there you go. Moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, and we've seen a number of these, but I just picked one of these to be a bit representative. Jaguar Land Rover halts US shipments in response to Trump tariffs. Jaguar Land Rover has committed it will pause all shipments to the US this month as Britain's embattled automotive sector begins to absorb the impact of new tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump. A 25% tax on car imports came into effect on April 3, part of a broader protectionist policy shift that has seen ripples through global supply chains. More tariffs on auto parts are expected to follow in May. JLR, one of the UK's biggest car makers, was taking short-term action as it works to adapt to the new trading landscape. Because it's not just the 25% on cars, they're going to pay, I guess, the 10%, I think it is, on the UK as well for that aspect. Yeah. And then I'm not sure if they need to pay anything on any Chinese content that went into that car either. And I'm sure there's some Chinese content in there somewhere. So, yes.
We were debating about this just this morning, this point around the current tariff landscape. And it's like it's a daily story right now within the industry, isn't it, as to what's actually going to. I was actually reading a publication online this morning from America, one of the August issues, so to speak. And it literally, they have a daily ticker tape about the change to the motor vehicle landscape, what it actually means. But you'd certainly, if you look at about the intentions of all the tariff war going on right now and what the ultimate intentions are, you'd be a fool if you were a motor vehicle manufacturer that's offshore to right now commit investment into America, because you literally don't know what the landscape tomorrow is going to be. And this is one of the issues I have with the current tariff battle going on, is it's not, if the idea is to bring a degree of certainty so you can make planning around, bring manufacturing back to America, bring our components back, whatever you want to do. All of those could be argued to be good intentioned efforts, but nobody is going to actually commit the money and the resource to bringing back manufacturing to market they don't know is going to be there tomorrow because of the changing landscape. And I think all the arguments and all the announcements we've seen so far about, well, they're going to bring this platform back from Canada and we've got a victory because they're bringing these cars, it's already going to happen. It was a matter of when the announcement was made.
I see it differently, and what'll happen is a whole pile of these companies will come in and say, we're gonna, well, countries or whatever will come in and say, we're gonna move this back to America, but it's gonna take time, Mr. Trump. And he's gonna go, that's fantastic. All I need is the soundbite that says, you guys bring that back to America. And he'll say, General Motors is gonna do this. I'm gonna exempt them from the tariffs, or I'm gonna push back Canada's tariffs or something like that. But I bet you all those things will take about 5 years to be done. And what happens after another 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
It won't happen. But he'll hold them up as these giant wins.
Mm-hmm. But no one's actually going to commit a proper solid dollar at this stage, like as in put the dollar down until they see what that landscape's going to be.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there's China, and what happens there?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Now, I'm actually going up to China in a week's time, so I'll see what the vibe is up there about whether they care
You
or
can
not.
ask the question, Richard.
I, to be honest, don't think China cares as much as perhaps Mr. Trump thinks they do, because I think they're pretty much busy on everything else at the moment. You know, America is not the biggest automotive market in the world. They are. So, you know, they're hurting themselves more than they're hurting China when it comes to automotive. Yeah, maybe some parts components might come from somewhere else for a while, or come from here for a while. But again, I don't think that'll actually happen before the
cars aren't the issue. Honestly, cars are not the issue when it comes to China and tariffs. They're an offshoot, if you like. Whereas the likes of Canada, for example, Mexico, the other two big names in the news, and a huge amount of American production is manufactured or component manufactured. Somebody said to me that the average vehicle built in Canada, the componentry crosses the border is at 5 times. There's 5 cross-border journeys of the componentry before the final car is made in Canada.
Well, I mean, Windsor, Ontario is pretty much just a suburb of Detroit, right? Your Mustang is built in America, but it comes with a driveline that gets built across the river.
Yeah.
Which would then they've got to work out, well, how much of the Mustang is the V8? Yeah. I mean, maybe they build the EcoBoost in America, then you can have the EcoBoost with tariff-free.
Where's the Coyote? I've got a Coyote one. Where's the Coyote built these days? You can't call it a Windsor anymore. In the old days, it was either a Windsor or a
Coyote is built in Windsor. I've checked.
The Coyote's built in Windsor. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yep.
Yeah. Still a Windsor. It's still a Windsor V8.
Yeah. All right.
Now, a couple of quick little things before we finish up. So first up is, and this amusingly shows the international nature of our car industry. I was up in Spain last week with AutoCar. You can look at this in AutoCar or EVs and Beyond. There's slightly different versions on either one. The Leapmotor C10R EV first drive, or the Ultra Hybrid as they call it. So this is a Chinese developed car built in China, but sold by a global company with headquarters in America and France and Italy, and I think technically they're headquartered in the Netherlands, Stellantis. I had it presented to me by an Italian manager, and then we were driving it on Italian plates in Spain. So a bit all over the place there. Interesting car. It's basically exactly the same as the electric model, slightly smaller battery and a petrol motor under the bonnet that has zero connection mechanically to the car. It literally just provides battery charge to the chip battery, not even direct power to the motor. But it's a very familiar motor to you. It's the H15R brand, because you've probably sold a lot of H15Rs in your time. The Nissan 1.5 litre.
That's a pretty old donk. I'm just sort of thinking HR15, I think.
HR15, yeah.
That is a really old donk. I mean, we're talking
but
about
not a bad donk, is it?
Oh no! But I'm thinking they've been around since I think we saw those first in the mid 2000 Teeter. I think it was the first. The 2004 Teeter, I think, was the first to use the HR15. Well, goodness me, there we are. Longevity at work, at play.
So it's built. That particular unit is built by Nissan's Chinese partner, Dongfeng. I think technically they call it a Pride motor. I think that's the name of Renault Nissan's engine joint venture type setup. It's such a simple motor, and I say that in the most positive of ways, that a lot of these things these days need a premium engine. This will happily run along on 91. It doesn't have to rev particularly high because it's only producing 50 kilowatts through the generator. It'll be producing more than that as a motor, but that's what it has to put out. So yeah, interesting. I thought that was one of the cooler aspects of that. But here's the cool thing about that vehicle is that it's the only petrol car you can buy in New Zealand at the moment that doesn't have a transmission.
Okay, all right.
It has no transmission other than the transaxle for the electric motor, which I argue you can't really call a transmission. It has no transmission at all. The motor runs directly into the generator. There is no connection to the world. So if you take the Toyota hybrids, the Jaycoos, the BYDs, the Havals, they all have either planetary gearboxes or weird multi-speed gearboxes or
Are there any
CVTs.
Nissan e-power products with electric drive sold
Well,
here?
this is the point that I'm making. Is the only new one, right? Well, the e-power is about the only system that's similar. To be argued, the e-power is the same. It's the closest you can get to it.
Closer, yeah,
Um,
exactly. Same principle. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, in fact, I'll carry it my thing other than the e-power. Um, but yeah, it's a really unique vehicle. I thought it was pretty cool. Pretty cool what is happening with technology. And my
Mm.
theory, one of the things I pitched in my video is, well, if you look at vehicles and if you run through the stuff you're looking at, you look at once it's getting to end of life, Graham, what are kind of the three biggest failure points these days? I guess you're looking at the engine itself, corrosion, which is getting pretty rare, or the transmission.
Transmission every time, every
Yeah.
time.
So you're taking a vehicle and you're taking the transmission out of it.
It's funny just thinking about America. One of the weird funny things we do, I follow on YouTube and Facebook. There's an American dismantling company, Auto Parts City, based in Chicago. One of the larger big dismantlers. They've got a really good Facebook page and YouTube. They do walk around every single day of all the stuff coming in, and they accept 40, 50, 60 cars a day coming in for crushing, if not more. It does a walk around, and it's just transmission after transmission after transmission after transmission. All these, what we would argue is saying, good-looking, clean cars, all going into the crusher. And every time a donut, transmission.
So yeah, if you like cars without transmissions, there you go. It's that, or maybe in this X-Trail e-power. But I can't remember if this X-Trail e-power is entirely without transmission. The only downside to that is that if you go below 9% battery power, which you have to really work to do because it'll fight you to try and make sure it stays above that, you can get a bit of a reduction in performance, but the computer will try and stop you doing that as much as you can. You've really got to try for that matter to have that happen. So there you go. Bit of a random one. Yeah. Now, last thing for the day, and the management of Auto Media Group nowhere necessarily agrees with the stereotypes covered in these next three slides. I stole these off the Car Memes Facebook group. Now, you've probably seen these AI things going around with these starter packs for various jobs, the AI generated images. You've probably seen this one. And by golly, have they nailed at least one of these. I know this salesperson. I know about 3 versions of this salesperson operating in New Zealand. In fact, I could probably name about 4 at one specific dealership. That exact person.
No, I've got a gold watch. I'm talking to the laptop. I can see that. Dangerous. I don't have the black shiny shoes. I don't do black shiny shoes.
Laptop, phone,
and I haven't got
keys.
They haven't got the gym. The gym workout.
I think that's a vape. I think that's a vape.
A vape? Oh yes, it could be too.
Yeah, that's pretty common. That's pretty common in the back of the yard these days. And the puffer jacket is just, and especially this time of year, the puffer jackets will be coming out.
I could throw some stones, Richard, from where I am right now, and I guarantee I could find you that particular stereotype to a T.
Well, if anyone is watching this and they have someone on their yard that looks like that, send a photo to richard@automediagroup.co.nz and we'll come up with a prize. We will blur the faces before we show them, but I definitely think there's 1 or 2 of those out there. Now, this is the one I think this is the one I don't necessarily agree with. No, this one I do.
Yeah.
How is it that even though we have now these far cleaner service centers and we have far cleaner cars these days to an extent too, the bathrooms in the back of workshops, and I've been to a few, are still pretty terrible. What's the bathroom like down at your workshop, Graham?
I clean it on Saturdays, and it's not quite that bad. But I was just thinking back, one of my jobs as a student, I used to work sole charge at a petrol station in Auckland, do the graveyard shift when I was 18, 19. Let me alone the place. I remember the bathroom there was pretty much like the bathroom at a train spotting. Remember that classic scene when Ewan McGregor's dipping his head? That was our bathroom at the service station. And people would ask to use the bathroom, and you'd think, "Are you really sure? Can you hold it in? Do you reckon?"
And then the parts advisor My brother was a parts advisor for much of his career. He kind of looks like that.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Doesn't live with his mum, though.
Where's the dude with the packet of cold McDonald's on his desk? So one of these ones had the salesperson, and there's a packet of cold McDonald's on his desk as well, because that's the other.
I haven't seen that one.
That's the other truth. There's always cold lunch on your desk somewhere, because the golden rule is whatever time you open your food, particularly if it's hot or it's prone to melting, is the precise time the annoying customer will come either with a warranty repair claim to discuss with you, or just seeking more information about that purchase they're likely to make in the next 7 or 8 months.
Yes. I need to come up with a similar version for motoring journalists.
You don't really want us to, Richard. You may not like it.
There's so few of us left in New Zealand that would have to, that'd be really, really cutting to the bone of particular people. You can't generalize them. Like, you could say that's that one, the parts advisor one, is a copy paste of 100 different people in the trade. You'd be getting down to very narrow figures when it comes to the others. Right now, so next week it is Easter. We'll talk, and maybe we'll try and do one on Thursday. Depends on I think the world's going to go pretty quiet next Monday. And then I'm away in China next week, but I might be able to do something on that day. We'll see how we go.
That's just flex, Richard. If you do it from that's just flex.
We've done it from China before.
Well, I know we have. You made it very clear we had to. Meanwhile, back here in New Zealand,
stop being jealous, McDonald.
I'll keep the home fires burning for you, Richard. Don't you worry. You just carry on with that travel. You take one for the team. Good for you.
Easy as. Right. Anyway, thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll catch you next week for another.
Have a great weekend, everyone. If you're in the industry, for Pete's sake, sell some cars. I sell some cars, everybody. Let's have a good weekend, okay?